All right, thanks for remaining with us. Can the establishment of cattle colonies across the nation really solve the problem of incessant clashes between herdsmen and farmers? That's a question we need to ask this morning.
Yeah, and already the federal government is already getting a backlash from some Nigerians who believe cattle colonies will not solve the problem. Let's talk about that before we go into our next discussion of Armed Forces Remembrance Day. Now, joining us, the chairman, Advanced People's Democratic Alliance, Kabir Shitu, is joining us from Abuja. It's good to have you join us. Kabir, good morning. Now,
good morning, Mr. Mike.
Yeah, thank you. Now, since the Minister of Agriculture, Audu Ogbe, came up with the issue of cattle colonies, not so many Nigerians have applauded that strategy as a solution to the crisis on ground between herdsmen and farmers.
You see, when you talk of a colony, it's new to Nigerian. What we are talking is about that we have always been talking of grazing reserve, or we talk of ranches. The word colony, I think I would advise the Ministry of Agriculture to expunge it as quickly as possible, because it is strange to us. And where do you find colony when you say cattle colony? We do with language in this country. So they should do away with colony. What we want, forget about blame game, is about grazing and or ranches. And what do we do as a country? It has come to stay with us. Then we should take advantage of these resources. How do we take advantage of these resources? There's statistic in 1982 when there's one of the grazing zone, Wase in particular, Wase was having every facilities, and the statistics show that we had 9 million cattle there. We have about 8 million goat, and you have of sheep, sorry, and you have about 25 million goat. If we have maintained that in Wase grazing zone, by today we will be one of the largest exporters of goat to Saudi Arabia. We will be largest exporters of cow meat into Europe. We will have been largest exporter. This advantage we need to take. Do you look at the advantage, or you look at, we want to create job. We don't instigate our youth to go into violence. We now turn that disadvantage to our own advantage. So what we are urging Nigerian government and people and government of the state is that when Wase was being handled, it was working. But as soon as these grazing reserves were handed over to the governors, it went dwindling. And today, we don't have anyone there. And when you are talking of grazing, there are a lot of advantage you are going to derive in grazing zones. What are these grazing zones going to provide? You have cow there. If you are with cow, you can have hide and skin processing industry in that area. You can have fertilizer, which is even organic fertilizer that the world is looking for, plant in that zone. You can also have ceramic industry that will spring up. Before you know, that state will have been industrialized. But instead of taking advantage of these resources, we have allowed ourselves to use ethnicity or division among us to now kill a project that will quickly drive the economic development of our country.
Okay,
this is what we are saying. Nigerians should look at the advantage.
Yes, indeed. You've said quite a number of things already there that we hope that government can begin to take seriously, a serious look at. But government is saying, look, we're setting up these colonies so that we can solve as quickly as possible the problem of herdsmen and farmers clashes. That's what government is saying. Are you saying that this solution may not be the solution?
For Ngozi, please, let's remove colony.
Okay.
What is colony? Where is the language? Look at our constitution. We are talking of grazing and ranches. Nobody has talked of colony. What are you talking about colony? Colony is only known in a shopping mall and area of selling meat and things in Karachi, Pakistan. Why are you talking of colony in Nigeria? What we are talking is grazing reserves. What we are talking is ranches. And we have done it before. I want Nigerians to go into Bayelsa State, which is even South state, in 2016, 2017. They had almost have this problem you have in Benue. But because the governor called on me, and we were in Bayelsa State, and at Bayelsa State, the man gave us a palm plantation of about 1,200 hectares. Because we are looking at Malaysian examples, where Malaysians also breed their cattle under the palm trees. And that example has been set up in Bayelsa State. Why can't federal government support Bayelsa State in this respect? For the past 2 years, there's any communal clash between Fulanis and the citizens of Bayelsa State.
Yes, why? Indeed, we understand that. Let me comment very quickly. Some 16 states have already agreed to cede some land to the federal government. Of course, the federal government says they will actually fund these colonies. I have to use the word until government withdraws that word. You know, so some states have already accepted to go ahead with these colonies. What are the implications of that, especially now that we have some southern governors, Afenifere and others, saying no, a complete no to the colonies, just like you have said?
Ngozi, when next you address me, sorry, I don't want to hear that colony. It's not our language. We should address talking of grazing reserve or talking of ranches.
Okay.
And then, secondly, when you are talking of state, until you sensitize the states to let them see the advantage they will derive in this, and for us to see that those things we are seeing as disadvantage to us, do we ask ourselves, is it the only herdsmen or Fulanis that rear cattle, rear sheep, or rear goat? The answer is no. Even this state that you are seeing millions of cattle roaming around, you look at the 80% of those cows belong to the citizens of those states. They don't even belong to those herdsmen you are looking at. But what we do as a people, let's forget about the disadvantage it will give us. Let us now, we are saying we want to improve, we want to give employment to our teeming youth. How do you employ your teeming youth when you are driving wealth out of your state? So I commend those states that have given their own land out. And also in giving this land out, in order not to be a futile action or project, they must also look at suitable climatic area that those cattle could be sited. And we must also look at the route. It's very, very important. You don't just go and site grazing reserve or ranches where you don't even have a route. So we must look at how we route this cow route are being put in place, and we must also start thinking of taking it to advanced level, where you have to now bring up rail lines, because if you don't want them to move because when you are moving them from one ranches to another, especially during the dry season, you need to move them towards river run area where you have a greener pasture, or you move them down south where it's this 24/7 greener
All
area.
Right, all right, Kabir.
I.e. the Bielsa, the rivers, so
Yeah,
we must take this advantage
to
Kabir, better our lot and
let me ask
create
you,
employment opportunities.
Okay, Kabir, let me ask you this. Kogi State and Plateau State have already accepted this scheme. I don't want to use the word, the same word that you say, but Kogi State and Plateau State have agreed to accept the scheme. In fact, they've gone to meet with the Minister of Agriculture to see how they can fine-tune the modalities towards that. But the basic questions Nigerians are asking is, all of this cattle belong to people. They are private, businesses of people. So why is the government being the one responsible to earmark and look for where the ranches or the, the grazing areas or reserves, as the case may be? That is what Nigerians are even more concerned about right now. Why don't you allow the businessmen? Because if you are from Sokoto State, you have the right to buy plots of land anywhere in River State or in Benue State or in Lagos State, as for instance. So why don't you allow the cattle herders buy a plot of land anywhere they want and rear their cattle as far as ranches and reserves are concerned?
You see, until Mr. Mike, until Nigerian chart economic development for ourselves, where do we as a Nigerian want to be in the next 50 years, in the next 30 years, in the next 20 years? You are having over 30% of the population unemployed. Now, where you are talking of why government, welfareism of the citizen and security of the citizen is a business of the government. The only way to provide security and welfareism is for people to have job to do. How do you create job? You don't just create job from the moon. You provide enabling environment. And how do you provide this enabling environment? Is by making sure that you put up these facilities for people to take up. When you are talking of government helping to build ranches, why can't we have stopped government from helping rice farmers? We have rice farmers that every day we are pumping billions of dollars we earn to make sure that they also grow rice.
Okay, we seem to have lost audio there. The chairman of Advanced People's Democratic Alliance speaking there, Kabir Shitu, is back. Okay. Yes, go ahead very quickly.
Hello?
Yes, we lost your audio there, unfortunately, but let me use the opportunity to throw in this question. Now, if government decides, just like it is saying, that it wants to set up some kind of area, I'm going to try to avoid the C word, some kind of area for herders to take care of their cattle. How important would it be for government to actually have accurate or near accurate data of how many cattle there are and how many herdsmen there are in the country, so that whatever policies government wants to come up with can actually solve the problem? Because it looks like government is shooting in the dark right now, not knowing the number of cattle or herdsmen that there are in the country.
All right, we still
have that problem. Yes, well, still discussing the issue of herdsmen, farmers clash in the wake of the Benue killings, where 73 or so human beings were lost. You know, some top Nigerians have been saying Nigeria seems to be a country at war with itself. We're not facing any external aggression or anything, but we're burying human beings in droves, on a daily basis,
if there's a war somewhere.
in large numbers. So what exactly does government mean by colony? Of course, Kabir Shitu, the word colony does not go down well with him, but really, like they say.
What he's saying is also resonates with a lot of Nigerians. You know, when we started the program, we're saying that the word colony, a lot of people are not going to be comfortable with that.
The kind of imagery that
exactly.
it strikes,
Because the point there is you're talking about coming to a place where people are, whether you're going to colonize them by any means, but the point there is you're going to impose
Yeah.
Because when you, the word colonize,
Yeah.
or colonized, all of them, they are all words that are interwoven. So you come to a place and then you're going to impose a certain way of doing
life.
things on the people,
A certain
whether it is
belief
the land or whatever. And certainly because of the experience Nigerians have had in the past, they would certainly not want that.
Absolutely.
So if you're talking about reserves, okay, fine, that's more civilized. If you're talking about ranches, okay, fine, that's more civilized, because all of these things are found in developed countries.
Indeed, according to our guest in Abuja there, Kabiru Shitu, he says, look, grazing reserves are what we have had in place before, especially in the 50s, 60s. Nigeria actually practiced open, grazing reserves, and with assistance even from the World Bank. You know, what has happened to all of that
But
right
the herders don't want to hear about grazing reserves.
And even if you have grazing reserves or colonies, apologies to Kabiru Shitu, or colonies.
He's no longer listening.
Will the cattle rearers, the herdsmen, accept to actually be confined in a certain place, especially when they've lived all their lives as nomads, you know, moving from one place to the other?
That's one of the challenges. I hear Kabir can hear us. He's back on now.
Okay.
Okay. Let me throw these questions to you from what Ngozi just said. The herdsmen are known to be nomads. If you're talking about reserves, you're talking about ranches, you're going to confine them to a certain place. So how will this still solve the problem when the herdsmen are known to move from place to place all their lives?
Yes, it's when you compare them to Texas cowboy who uses horse to drive these cows. Now, that is why we said in Nigeria, you must now maintain the cattle route. You must put this cattle route in proper place so that when they are moving, they have the route that they follow, which they know. And secondly, that is why we are saying, even when you set up these ranches or grazing area, we let us advance it by putting rail line, where from one point to another point, instead of them moving and entering into people's, encroaching on people's farm, they can now just take them from the train and move them direct to another ranches that they are going. Because they are not just moving, not that they like moving, they like to, no. It is weather, the climate that push them to move around. Now, if you are having between, let's assume October, November, December, January, February, March, around this area, you see them moving down south towards river where.
All right, challenge again, we'll have to leave it. Chairman Abda, Kabiru Shitu Abda, of course, is Advanced Democratic Alliance. All right, joining us and discussing the herdsmen farmers issue in Nigeria. It's not only in Benue, it has happened in different parts of the country. And of course, his last point there, the challenge of climate change.
Yeah.
What are the leaders at different levels really doing to actually tackle it at that level? We'll continue with other discussions. Of course, it's Armed Forces Remembrance Day.